everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Elizabeth Mixon, and I am the managing editor of the Intelligent Automation Network. And we are so excited to have you today, along with our partners in crime for the next 45 minutes, AVO Automation. And today we're going to be talking about modernizing testing with an agile, intelligent approach to quality assurance. So just to give you kind of a heads up of what you can expect, to kick things off, we're going to have Annalisa Camarillo. She's the SVP and Chief Marketing Officer of AVO. And she's going to be giving you a brief introduction to the company and, setting some context. Next up, we'll have actually AVO's CEO, Avidir Amin, and he'll be talking about solving test automation challenges for CNA Financial. Following that, we'll be having Chris Horn, who is the head of product marketing success for AVO, and he'll be sharing a demonstration of customer pain points and solutions. Following that, we'll have an interactive Q&A to give you a chance to ask some of your questions. And then to wrap things up, we will have a very exciting surprise offer, and then next steps. All right, so without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Annalisa Camarillo.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Just going to share my screen. All right. Here we go. Excellent. So let me also give a warm welcome to all of our attendees. Give me 1 second as I make this a little bit bigger. A slight lag with my PowerPoint. So just wanted to say thank you to everybody for joining. I hope everybody's staying safe and taking care. It's tough times right now with everything that's happened with the pandemic, but I really do feel that united, staying safe and looking after each other, we can really overcome the challenge. So to give the importance of automation some context, I wanted to just share really quickly an IDG 2021 CIO report statistic that found that automation has actually risen to the top of the agenda for most enterprise and mid-size CIOs. Automation, automating everything from business processes to test automation has become the number one item on the agenda that will be getting investment from budgets. And one thing that I would focus on with respect to automation is not only robotic process automation, but more so AI-driven automation. Automation is a must for companies that want to compete, and our entire mission at AVO is to help companies do that. So who is AVO? AVO was born out of a lot of feedback and input that we got from IT and the testing community. And a lot of that feedback was what we used to help build our solutions. And you'll see that reflected in how customers rate us, either on G2 or on Peer Insights. Starting from the top, we placed in the G2 top performer quadrant for test automation, and we're continuing to hone our solutions with customer feedback. So I encourage everybody to go check out what customers have to say about us. We're at a near 5-star customer rating, which I think is fantastic. And like I said, that's a testimony to how we're doing to ensure that the solutions we develop really meet what customers are looking for. AVO has been working with some of the largest enterprise companies in the Fortune 500, and I'm talking about companies like CNA Financial, Voya, and Sony. And so we have experience, and again, we've learned a lot from our customers and continue to hone our solutions. Everything we've designed was compelled by a customer need. So you'll notice that we are always honing based on that customer feedback, and our solutions, or I should say our roadmap, continues to get more and more innovative as we go into the year and into the future. Just a couple more things to point out. We are also the very first to integrate process discovery with test automation. So if you want to document a process and take it all the way to an automation, you can easily do that with our solutions. So enough about us. Let's talk a little bit about our customers. This is the typical journey that we see, starting from the very top, some of the QA challenges that people are experiencing today. And most of these, I'm sure our audience is going to find familiar. Upwards of 80% is still manual, and that's according to the World Quality Report of 2019. A more recent one has actually found that only 16% of companies are able to automate end to end. So even those companies that lean into automation, they're finding it tough to be able to automate an end to end process. And when I say that, I mean a full process, full transaction. To be able to automate it is tough. And those are the things that we work with our customers to do. We found that quality engineering teams have a mix of other challenges too, with respect to processes or with respect to the types of tools that they use for testing. It's either a mix of tools that they're using or a set of sort of fragmented technologies that are used for different use cases. And what we like to do is just talk to people about ensuring that when you're automating or when you're trying to achieve software quality and rapid delivery into market, what you want to do is have an end-to-end automation experience, because that's what really delivers efficiency. That's what delivers the gains that most customers want and deserve. When customers reach this moment of low return on investment, it's when we encourage customers to start to reevaluate their testing model. And when it's time to reevaluate your testing model, what we believe in at AVO, and you find this inherent in our solutions, is 3 essential elements: intelligence, simplicity, and speed. Intelligence is the inherent AI skills that are built into our product. So if it's process discovery or it's test automation, AI is really what's driving the intelligence, the ability to really be able to track defects, reduce defects. All of those things come into order with the brain of that automation, and that's driven by AI. Simplicity is the fact that we are a no-code platform. Coding really adds more time to the process, and we are a no-code platform, which really we've seen that accelerates the rate of adoption. It also accelerates your time to market, because the simpler it is to use, the faster you're going to get things done. Speed is just being able to get not just any kind of software into market, but quality software is king. So how do we help our customers? We are a full suite vendor, as I mentioned, process discovery. We also do traditional robotic process automation. And today we're going to focus on test automation. And our solution for that is AVO Assure. We have a unified test automation platform, and we're going to show you with our case study how we're, as I mentioned, simple to use, no code, AI driven, that supports over 200 technologies. And so it really does support heterogeneous environments. Doesn't matter what technology you're using, doesn't matter what applications you're testing. Touch point that you're going to test that application or that software, you can easily do it with AVO Assure. And then auto creation of test cases, which speeds up the process of delivering software to market, is just being able to auto create those test cases so that as you're testing them, right, it's simple, it's easy, it's fast. And without further ado, Elizabeth, back to you for our polling question.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, guys, so it's time to talk a little bit about you and what you're doing. So we do have a live poll question. Just know that the results of this poll, we do hope to share during this webinar. So do, fill it out right now. It should be on the right side of your screen. But the question is, what is your biggest test automation pain point? The options are: application testing is manual, time consuming. Our testing process is outdated. The company doesn't invest in automation. Our test automation solution doesn't do everything. And application testing is manual and time consuming and outdated. All right. So you have 45 seconds to select which one best aligns with your pain point. And then hopefully we can share the results. Oh, here they are. They're coming in. So far, our testing processes are outdated is in the lead. The application testing is manual. It's, following behind it. So if you disagree, definitely fill it out. All right. So hopefully we'll be able to share this with you by the end of the session. But I think we're going to move on to the next slide.
Yep, here we go. So I'll take it back over from you, Elizabeth. So now it's time to jump into our case study. This is one of our favorite parts of our presentation, is to tell the story regarding CNA Financial. Just as I mentioned, there's a lot of what I described are the benefits to our platform. We're going to prove it to you by walking you through a case study. So over to our CEO of AVO, Viduraman.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you all for being here with us this morning. So a little bit about CNA Financial and the journey that they've embarked on with AVO. So CNA Financial is a large insurance company based out of Chicago. They're actually one of the top 10 commercial insurers in the US. And they had a new CIO come in, Jane Puzzell, about a year and a half ago with a new mission to transform their technology shop from a traditional project-centric delivery approach to a product-centric agile approach, so that she could start making her company as competitive from a technology perspective as some of the newer fintech players or insurtech players coming out in the market. But obviously, as most of you probably know, coming from a large Fortune 500 enterprise, they had a huge technology stack encompassing legacy applications, some mainframe applications, along with some newer cutting edge applications. And their goal was pretty simple. How can we make sure we release every 2 weeks into production, but we want to release with high quality? And one of the biggest challenges as they started to embrace Agile was ensuring that they could test all of their software in such a short time period. So we worked very closely with this client to deliver on test automation in a seamless, integrated way so that they could test actual end-to-end business processes and not just individual applications or subsets of applications. Kind of building on what Lisa said earlier, the goal being make sure the functionality works for the business rather than just testing at an individual application level. So let's go ahead and hear a little bit from Jane, the CIO, about her experience working with AVO so far.
I've been working with AVO Automation for about 8 months now, and I'm happy to share how things are going. Let me tell you a little bit about CNA and my vision for IT within CNA. CNA Insurance is a commercial insurance carrier in that we sell to businesses versus individual people. Founded in 1897, we currently insure over 1 million businesses and professionals from our 67 offices around the world. I joined last year and brought forth a new agenda for technology and IT. My agenda included transitioning from project-centric delivery to product-centric delivery. So instead of traditional waterfall delivery or delivery leveraging great agile practices, but in waterfall constraints, we needed to continue the great progress that the organization made before I joined and really move toward a more true agile delivery model. This would allow us to enable our market and business needs faster and in a much more responsive way. We chose AVO Automation to help us achieve our goals in application delivery by step in the development lifecycle. In just a few months, we've achieved a lot. So our goals for this were to really start supporting that transition that I mentioned from project-based to product-centric and improve our software delivery and our quality overall with less defects and faster time to market. We needed to enable true DevSecOps by increasing the velocity and the frequency of our automated testing, which would allow more frequent deliveries, of course, into the market. We had to support heterogeneous automated testing across multiple platforms, web, mobile, mainframe, desktop, you name it. If it's a technology, we probably have it somewhere inside CNA. And then, of course, bottom line, we had to reduce our costs and our overhead of maintaining multiple automation tool sets. So what was the solution? The solution was to start with process discovery. That allowed us to document our process and save time so that when we started actually doing the automation, we had it built. So we went through and efficiently documented those process workflows and then automated our application and business level testing of our top 24 business critical applications to accelerate delivery and amplify our quality. So far, it's been a great experience working. Very smooth. We've been able to enable rapid automation because AVO Discover and Assure work together. That's allowed us to expand our automated functional testing at twice the rate compared to what we were able to do before we began working with AVO. We've also expanded our DevOps, and in partnership with application subject matter experts, filled in multiple gaps in our existing test coverage. At the end of the day, we're already seeing, after again, just those short 8 months, a steady reduction in costs, which of course is allowing us to deliver the best return on investment that we could. So let me give you a little bit of glimpse into what's next. At the end of the day, we need to continue promoting a community of testing that spans common standards, best practices, tooling, and of course, cross-team collaboration. And AVO has been key for our success in that area. So this is our progress so far, and we're really thankful for it and for our partnership with AVO.
So I hope that gave everybody a good perspective of CNA's journey so far in moving towards an agile, true development experience. I'm going to now hand it over to Chris, our head of customer success, who's going to share with you some of the pain points within this particular client and how we solve them through a live demo. Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Vitor. Let me just share my screen. And it should be coming up here shortly. Toggle over. Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Vitor. Thanks, Lisa. Welcome, everyone. Really excited to step through not only as we peel the onion back, some of the capabilities that were leveraged within AVO Assure, as Jane touched on, and even as Vitor and Lisa had mentioned, to enable them a solution overall that was heterogeneous and, of course, gave them the kind of coverage they needed. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. So let's take a momentary step back and look at some of the challenges and pain points at a high level. And when we started working with CNA, and we see this quite a bit with our customers, the testing approach that they're taking relative to, well, what they've got to test or need to test. And you heard Jane say, if there's a technology out there, we've likely got it. They might be perhaps an extreme case, but for all of you, you certainly have more typically than one application technology that you need to test against. And so this is applicable just the same, right? Instead of, it could only be 2 or 3 technologies as opposed to Jane's 7 or 10, they had a lot to work with and need to test. But the testing approach often becomes one of the root cause challenges and even derived pain points, in that businesses tend to start siloed and they augment or focus on the testing relative to their capabilities or what they've found in the marketplace that can assist them. You might say the automation or semi-automation that they discover in market, they bring forward, but that ends up guiding them as to the totality of how they take a siloed approach. In some cases, it can even be manual, right? Because they haven't found anything. And that was the case at CNA. And it was very much rooted in a technology-based emphasis. And again, we do see this a lot with our customers. CNA was and is a great example of that today. And what they were seeing as a result, really as a byproduct, was based on how they saw their testing and the expansion aspects of that, their very needs of expanding and growing their test cases. They were seeing lower productivity. And in fact, as they started to expand coverage, productivity was actually dropping, dependent on the testing approach that they took. Obviously, manual is that unfortunate base case, and it does not scale very well. But even some of the other products that they were using that were, well, technology focused or based, say, web, for web application automation, test automation, they were seeing lower productivity there over time. Impact that this was having, and you're going to see this in a moment. I'm going to bring a couple slides up that really get this into or bring the perspective into the agile development world. and realm, which CNA does use, and many other of our prospects and certainly customers do as well, there's another type of impact, and that is the need to meet or inability to meet their timelines, right? The release timelines that are ultimately important and derive relative quality. So let me jump in with a little bit more detail. So we saw this again in some of the cases within CNA, the various siloed teams, where they had very limited testing or almost no automation being applied. And you have your typical bell curve here, right? You have a development effort that is underway. And we'll say this is a new development, right? That's important. And my demo is going to go in this direction to show you how we can quickly and rapidly accelerate testing for the tester in these circumstances. And of course, this was ever true for CNA as well. But in a no or limited test automation case, which CNA had, they had their development effort, and then they had a gap in how quickly they could start their testing, start the designing of their test cases, right? They could not do this in parallel. So that gap, which you see in the bottom left corner, that delay really got that QA team, which of course was focused and tasked with creating test cases. They got a late start, and then they were under time pressure thereafter, because guess what? Over on the far right, those release expectations, they didn't shift very much. And maybe they were force shifted at the end, but in an unfortunate scenario or case relative to quality and other needs of the business. And so for CNA, this represented the core of their challenge. It wasn't necessarily their ability to develop and bring change. No, they were very strong there, but it was the ability to provide the necessary coverage, which had everything to do with getting started quickly or enabling that QA team to work in parallel with that development team. So what does that look like? And what did that look like with AVO Assure when we stepped in? And with AVO Assure, they were able to start the QA cycle, right, in parallel with the development cycle. Again, agile-based, sprint-based. So as the sprint planning sessions were occurring on the front end to each release, that QA team was enabled with an understanding of what would be included functionally and structurally within that application. And what I'm about to show you is how we, even when the application's not available in terms of the UI, we still enable the QA team within and using our no-code environment to quickly and easily create that or those constructs that represent what is being developed. Fields, objects, elements that are very well key for how we bring forth test automation. And again, I'll show you that momentarily. And in all, for CNA, they were able to not only close this gap, which of course greatly helped mitigate and even improve their release timelines, but also expanded the coverage, which you can see in that darker purple, all right? And so using our test automation capabilities, intelligent screen capture, object capture, and also our testing scalability within test windows as needed, we were able to enable CNA to expand and close gaps. Pretty powerful. So with that, let's go ahead and start to move into our demo, right? So I'm going to give you really two scenarios, and this is going to be my setup slide for that, right? So I'm going to show you an existing, albeit simple for time purposes, test plan in AVO Assure that represents an existing application. It's going to show itself as a funds transfer application in a very simple form. And in fact, it's on our fictitious website, AVO Bank, okay? But it's our existing test, and I'm going to show you the test plan around that, and you'll see the various scenarios and test cases. And then we're going to have that moment in time where it's time to enhance. It's time to start up a new release. We're in sprint planning, and that's when this new release is in development, right? And so how does that world and that transition occur and develop in a QA sense for the QA tester or testers in the team, right? And we do support test teams even when they are co-located geographically, right? But yet working as one team. Okay, so with that, let me go ahead and jump over to our demo here, and I'm going to go ahead and fire us off. And you can see, same layout as I mentioned. we're going to first go ahead and step into the existing test, just a quick overview of what that looks like. And the test plan for that funds transfer application looks as such. Again, it's very simple. I have no doubt that your test plans and the underlying elements are far more complex, right? If we had the time, I would certainly love to show you the end-to-endness of that, which we are capable of doing not only from a mapping standpoint, but also from an execution standpoint. But we're going to drill into the simplicity here. So we have our existing funds transfer application, and that's under test currently. But now that moment happens when we're moving into a new release and the planning occurs that I mentioned previously, okay? And so what will occur from a test planning standpoint relative to that, the role of that QA test team? Again, how are we accelerating? Well, they're going to branch out, not the code, but add to the test plan. And you can see this quite simply. It's being graphically added, right? And this will be representative of a new web page. Again, keeping it simple. I know there are more complex scenarios that would exist and do exist, but we're just adding a web page here, right? And this is for accepting a loan or requesting a loan, all right? And so at this point, there are two task types that we support within AVO Assure, right? And again, this gets to enabling not only assignments within testing and AVO Assure, but the breadth at which we can do it. And so in this particular case, you can see I'm assigning a task of execute. We have also a task of design. I'm assigning it to the same person. But of course, we could assign that to two different individuals. And this gives tremendous power to team sizing. If you have a small team, this might very well be the way you design and execute. But for larger teams, you might subdivide the effort, and we support that as well. All right? So let's go ahead and move on. So what we're going to do here, again, we don't have the application yet made available to us, the UI, but we do know the fields and the buttons. So we're going to go in here and we're going to start creating some temporary objects and specify the type of those objects. So we've got an apply loan button, as you can see on screen, right? A selection of which branch, which is a drop-down list, okay? And then also the loan amount, and so on and so forth. So these are just objects that are placeholders, right? Temporary objects. You'll see the importance of this and the power of it. But the QA tester or test team is able to move forward here in alignment, in parallel with what the development team is doing within the sprint and the actions of the sprint. And so now what you see here is we are, and I'm going to go ahead and pause just for a second, okay? You can see that we're in the design process, right, of taking those said objects, right, those temporary objects, and we're applying them to our test design. Lisa mentioned, Vitor also noted this as well, we are a no-code platform. You're not writing any code here, and this is where and how you do this. And the where and the how come together with the objects that are established, in this case, the temporary objects, and I want to stress that, but we're correlating those to keywords which are pre-built functions. This is where you'd otherwise be coding, right? And these functions represent direct actions or steps, like user navigation steps. And so you see the @browser function where we're opening the browser as a keyword, okay? And then we're navigating to the URL, okay? And then you're also going to see some input functions. In this particular case, we're applying single data inputs. Again, just to keep this test design simple. We could also be using our keywords specifying an external source to which we're going to pull in what we call data parameterization and feed in the various data types in plural that would proliferate our tests when executing the test. I'm keeping it simple right now and just giving you single data line entry as an example. You also notice here, we have a list of keywords, right? We actually support over 1,500 keywords, but you're not, if we were to scroll down, if I were to scroll down, you would not see 1,500. That would be far too much. We continually provide our own IntelliSense filtering where we know the type of application this is, and the object, and we're constantly filtering that keyword list appropriately so we're not inundating that QA tester who's in design, right, having to sort through all the various lists. An example would be we're in web right now, okay? And we also support SAP. There are a number of other keywords. You can imagine the variances of different kinds of keywords that would very much be out of scope and bog down that the tester's ability to design quickly and easily. Again, it's about acceleration and movement forward quickly, getting into debug for completing design and execution relative to what is occurring within the sprint and what's under development, okay? So I'm gonna fire us off really quickly again, and we're gonna complete this test design against a simple one. You're gonna see these temporary keywords, objects being applied to keywords, okay? And I also wanna mention here before we exit that over here on the far left, you see debug on, right? So we could, when we're done, I'm not going to have time to do this, I apologize, but once we're done with our test design, you can choose to do on-demand debugging across any number of the browsers that we support, right? You're about ready to see me in this demo go and capture screens and objects as we start to utilize the live UI when it comes live. It's not live yet, right? And when I do that, I'm gonna actually come and click on the browser here. But I can also debug against any number of these browsers. So tremendous flexibility in the world of web. That really matters, right? I can't expect my users just to be on Chrome. I have to support N number of browsers, and we support all of the major browsers, all right? So what you see in purple here, the shading is also those temporary objects, and that'll have meaning as we start to merge things together. So without further ado, let me push this forward, all right? So we're finishing up our test design. And now you're going to notice that we've had that moment where the development team has said, look, team, we're releasing for internal purposes only the first iteration of our UI. And now the QA team is getting their first glimpse of that. So let's, again, a day, time, hour, what have you, as part of receiving this, let's look at this from a QA perspective. They're going to go ahead and bring this up, right? And they're going to say, well, what does this look like? Right? From a UI standpoint, does this align with what our sprint planning was? And we're going to say, yes, it does. Okay, great. So let's, now as a QA tester, now let's continue to move forward. I've already done some stuff, right? I've already set the stage with my temporary objects and my test design, right? Simple, yes, but my test design that correlates to that. Well, what do I need to do to finish this up? Do I have a lot of heavy lifting and work? Not at all, not with AVO Assure, all right? With AVO Assure, it's as simple as this. So we have our temporary fields in shaded purple, right? What we're now gonna do is we're gonna go into our capture, our intelligent capture capability, right? Which is our own computer vision, and it enables us to identify screens, right? The underlying objects, right? And bring this forward in a drag and drop usable objectized manner. Okay, very, very powerful. And again, I'm going to use Google Chrome for this. You could choose to use any one of these browsers during this process. Okay. The other thing I want to point out here is you saw me click the append button. We allow a tester, those working within AVO Assure, to literally start and stop at any point in time. Even if they bring a test case to closure and the screens and objects correlated to that, change happens in the world of software, okay? You can go back at any point in time within that configured, created screen and object and test case and append to it, add to it, adjust. Powerful feature. This also allows you, enables you to easily manage the life cycle of your test cases, and of course your overlying, or in some might say underlying scenarios, your test scenarios. Very, very powerful. This was another area when you think about test automation that was hugely beneficial to CNA and other customers like CNA. It really speaks to that dark purple that I pointed out on my presentation about that coverage, because establishing it is one thing, but how do you maintain it over time? Because once this UI, as simple as it is, gets released, it's now part of my overall test plan. I have to keep testing that, right? How do I do that quickly, easily, and manage the life cycle of that? And we've thought of that, that's built into the same user experience that testers do experience with AVO Assure. All right, let me push this on here. So now we're going to capture intelligently screens and the fields or buttons, right? So that was a button we just captured on the prior screen. Now we're capturing the fields, right? And it's as simple as what you see here. We're just pointing and clicking. Now you can see over here in the upper left that we've got 8 fields, right? Or I should say 8 object types, excuse me. Those that were temporary and those that we just captured intelligently. We're now dragging and dropping to associate and map these. And that's as difficult as this is, from staging those temporary objects to the actual screens, right? And what does the power here give us? What this does is this locks in, utilizing our computer vision, the ability to connect with that screen in a manner that is intelligent but not position sensitive, right? If there are dynamic objects that are part of that UI, we can handle those as well, right? But now we've infused that underlying technology that represents those applications with the test that was designed, okay? And now it's a matter of really running debug. I'm not going to have time to do that. I apologize. And then moving it on into what would be scheduling for execution, for running tests. And I will touch on that when I move back to my slides, okay? So let's go ahead and just move on over, because I have a little bit of an extended surprise here that you might not have thought of, right? So now we're at a point where we've completed our test, right? So the QA team is feeling very good right now. They're not pushed out on that outer edge of the bell curve. They're very much in the center of that, in the mean, and ready to take on more tasks and or perhaps add more coverage, look at things from an end-to-end testing standpoint. But guess what we can now do? With a complementary product, AVO Discover, we also provide an extended coverage capability for those that need to document the application, or when thinking about adding coverage, which was also the case with CNA, right? Because they had catching up to do. They inserted AVO Assure at a point in time where that worked great for how and where they wanted to start new applications, but what about the existing work they had done? They used AVO Discover to backfill, capture those processes, turn those into test cases that can be auto-generated. Lisa mentioned this in her front-end presentation. We have the ability to do that, and here's where you do it. So without further ado, again, let me go ahead and jump into our AVO Discover capabilities very quickly. We're going to really focus on the funds transfer application. We're using our computer vision, just like you saw, got a snippet of that with AVO Assure. But for a business user or someone that really needs to just step through the application, right, and literally use it as it would be used, you're pointing and clicking data, right, and just moving through as you would behave with the application accordingly. We're capturing screens, fields, underlying metadata. We're enabling this user, right? Or if assigned differently, a different user, fine. We have assignment capabilities here. The ability to be able to break this down into activities relative to a workflow. This is important because it really fuses together what we've captured behind the scenes and that of what looks or would be the actual workflow, right? Which you're about ready to see here shortly, okay? We generate a workflow, and then you can also edit that workflow, or you can capture multiple different processes and then stitch them together, right? So tremendous power there. And here you can see on screen that simple workflow, albeit, right? But we allow you to augment using our tools and also stitch together, as I mentioned, other processes that were captured. The power here ultimately is that when you do generate your documentation, again, maybe for your tech pubs or documentation person or persons, okay, they're quickly and easily able to accelerate the documentation process as well, right, to meet that organization, that team's documentation governance needs. But I want you to also look just to the left here of the Generate Document button. You see Export to AVO Assure, right? This is where the auto-generation magic happens, right? So however you have created, seamed, stitched together your processes, when you export, those turn into scenarios and screens and test cases and are importable into AVO Assure. Again, allowing you to quickly and easily at a user level, behaviorally, to accelerate what the QA test team needs to now do and consider. Again, it's in the user behavioral mode and model. So now they understand that from that context and perspective and can start to act on the creation of test cases. This was also very, very key for CNA in filling that, if you will, coverage backlog. Yeah. All right. So with this, and by the way, I didn't point this out, but when we generate documentation, it can be in a Word or PDF format, right? Obviously, PDF locks it in as is. Word gives you the opportunity to edit further, okay? So let me go ahead and jump back to my slides really quick and wrap up with our platform slide here. And I'm doing this because I very much focused on web, but I don't want to lose sight on or of our platform capabilities at large. We're talking about, in light of what Jane mentioned, you know, if they have an application technology or if one exists, we've got it, right? And that, again, was their case. The value we brought wasn't just in being able to accelerate on web, as I showed you. It was being able to do this across n number of different application technology types and even platforms. And you can see SAP is supported. We'll soon be adding Oracle, EBS. We already support cloud. All the way out to Salesforce with Lightning, right? The new Lightning design objects. Very, very challenging to capture and do something with. As you witnessed here in the demo, we can do that as well, just in the same flow, the same experience for the QA tester in design and what would be execution, as you witnessed in this demo, all right? And lastly, what I did not talk about was that computer vision also includes the ability to objects or even work within screens that are entirely pixel-based, although image-based objects, right? Citrix, that's all Citrix produces. Everything on screen is image-based. So typical classic computer vision, if it does not work at a pixel or have the ability to work at a pixel level, which we have an element of our computer vision at large, which we call Iris, can do that. And applying our machine learning, image-based algorithms, we can grab objects, even in web that might be an icon, right? Or it could be a logo that you might want to use in your test design, all the way out to what would be entirely image-based on screen. You can also use it for PDF documents and the like, other things that are image-based, right? Tremendous power there. I've talked a lot about our no-code capabilities. I haven't mentioned API. Believe it or not, within our same design experience and process, you can use, and we have select keywords for this, API testing. You can apply API testing as well. It doesn't always have UI involved, but that doesn't matter. We don't require a screen, right, or the capture of objects to enable you to create a test in design. We don't, and this is where our API testing comes into play, and we do, again, have keywords for that, right? I mentioned the on-demand debug capabilities. Okay, I won't dwell on that, but our scheduling is something to really talk about. We have, once you're ready to put this into production, that is your test cases, your scenarios for execution into production, we have a number of different ways you can do this to really give you a distributed testing capability. Yes, you can run it locally on your system. You're not going to get much scale that way. You've got to get this out into a farm-like pooling environment, and we support that in an N number sense, right? You can have N number of pools that represent number of VMs, and within that, we can perform and provide parallel testing to suit your testing windows. And we do it intelligently in that the pooling, the availability of the pools and the VMs, we bring together for scheduling purposes. So we can actually schedule those, call them jobs, if you will, into that environment for execution to meet your time window. So from an agile sense, if I'm working on my application, right? Take our example here, and I need to get results. How did we do from the work we did yesterday? I have a window of hours. So the test team could and would here, as you saw, quickly and easily be able to create the necessary tests and submit them into that time period. We would intelligently fit that window And the next day when they show up, they're going to have their test results. They're going to know where they stand. Speaking of that, this often involves other lifecycle management tools and products, both agile focused and those that are just application lifecycle based, right? We support those as well with pre-built integrations. And yes, with all this change happening, we also support GitHub for version control. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to that exciting bit of information that Elizabeth mentioned, and I think even Lisa noted this as well. I'd like to extend to all of you here on the webinar a 14-day assisted trial for a test scenario of your choice. Probably can bend our arm if you want to add 1 or 2 extra scenarios within that as well, not a problem. Please get in contact with us by sending us an email at AVO, info@avoautomation.com, or maybe better yet, just go to our website and just request a demo, okay? With that, I want to say thank you so much for your time today. And I'm going to pass this back over to Elizabeth to take us into what should be a fun session for Q&A.
Thanks, Chris. That was fantastic. So we are going to extend things a little bit just to make sure that everyone has a chance to ask their questions. So the session will go on till about noon. So if you do have a question, just enter it into the chat on the right side. We'd be more than happy to answer it. But to kick things off, it looks like we already have a couple. Let's see. So I think this one is really an important question. So is your product truly no code?
Yeah, it through and through it is. I will say that no doubt we do have requests from time to time where we have some prospects and even existing customers for sure that want to do some things very much out on the periphery, outlier. And we actually have a keyword which we call @custom, right? That allows you to go out and do some additional things out on that periphery. It's not required. You can get done what you need to get done using our pre-built keywords, and it is, as shown, entirely no code.
Fantastic. And what about dynamic objects? Can you guys handle those?
Yes, we certainly can. And as I had mentioned, I gave the reference of Salesforce. That's often a more recent challenge using Lightning, but we absolutely support dynamic objects. Again, we're not position sensitive until in terms of how we identify objects on a screen. So if objects move, we're able to handle that as well.
Fabulous. And let's see. Do you integrate with other Agile CI/CD platforms?
We do. I had shown this on the platform slide, but just to be a bit more specific, yes, as some examples here, Jenkins, Jira, right? We certainly do. We also, it's worth noting actually, the way we enable initially our integrations is we have our own open API, which often allows for a base level integration to almost any product that has a common open API, right? Exposes its underlying functionality in a reasonable sense. What we do with our pre-built integrations, we've taken a step further. It's a tighter integration. So we have that I showed in the slide, right, on the platform slide. But I also want to point out that this open API often becomes that initiator for doing or providing a connection point to any others that aren't listed.
Interesting. And then obviously today, everyone has a need for speed. So how much faster can you automate with this product versus other tools in the market?
I'd say about 4 times faster. We do see speeds that are greater, achievable. With CNA, it was 4x, right? Again, I also want to point out the coverage there because speed does matter. But if you out of 100% of your coverage you need, if you're running even 100 times faster, but you're only doing this at 15% coverage, I mean, that's great, I suppose, but it's really, I need to run at 4x at near 100% coverage, right? So it's really, this is where that combination of acceleration, getting that coverage you need quickly and easily, and that scale that gives you that speed overall. So it's multidimensional.
Awesome. Awesome. So it looks like we have a couple more.
Okay.
It says, Annalisa, you mentioned an end-to-end automation experience. Achieving that goal has been elusive for so many. What might be one big picture key to realizing end-to-end automation?
One big picture key to achieving end-to-end automation is having the right technology that can work across applications and touch points, right? So any business process that you may be testing could be touching multiple applications, be it Salesforce, be it, and it really depends on what that process is. A lot of the testing platforms, test automation platforms, can't actually cover every technology, can't actually work in a heterogeneous environment. And so in order to be able to capture a process end to end, you need a platform, and we're able to do that can work across within multiple environments, whether it be, and across multiple types of applications, whether they be desktop, whether they be web applications, so on and so forth. And so you need that freedom, you need that flexibility, and we provide that.
Absolutely. And if I can just add to what Lisa said, so if I can give you a visual, and I know all of you will get will be able to access the recording of this, so go back to it as well. When I showed the base state, right, I showed our what we call mind maps, but the graphical representation of our test plan. At the very top, there was a module, right? So imagine that module is our web application. Imagine we also have another module, which is mainframe. Maybe we've got an e-commerce application that's front-ending our mainframe process. It's a specific business process. So you'd have a module that supports that. Again, we support that environment as well. When you get to the test execution side, which I was unable to show you, again, we're pressed for time. But if I were to set that up for execution, I would pick both modules to be executed.
Yeah.
And when those are executed, all of the underlying scenarios and test cases would be executed in the appropriate sequence, which you can also establish. But if you're running a test from e-commerce through to, maybe it's an order operation, right? Quote to cash kind of a process into your mainframe, you could actually set up those modules, align them for test execution, and do that end to end. That's the kind of testing we're talking about, and visualizing it in terms of accelerating the creation of that just the same.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And have the flexibility to do it for a big process, big heavy enterprise process, or a smaller process. It really shouldn't matter the length of your process and the touch points. You should have the flexibility to really be able to measure it end to end. And so we really are talking about the horizontal ability to test end to end, not so much, a vertical way of testing into the layers of whatever that software is. We're talking end to end.
Yeah, it's wide and deep. Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So the next question is, following up on the poll question, what test automation pain point do you guys see the most? Or have you guys dealt with the most is actually the wording.
Well, actually, go ahead, Vitor. I think you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, sure. I think two things here, right? One of them is absolutely the lack of product to cover end-to-end multiple technologies, right? We see many clients kind of struggle with that initially when they're trying to test business processes, because, for a long time, they've been limited to only being able to test an application because they don't have a technology that can really support a whole bunch of various other technologies to really test the business process, right? So we really believe that's a key aspect in delivering true business resilience.
Wonderful. And then we have just one last question, and it's actually directed to you, Vitor. What's the biggest lesson you've learned and applied at AVO Automation through working with global corporate enterprise?
Sure. So I think overall, kind of building on what I just said, we want to make sure that our products can be used across various technologies, right? And even across different user groups. So it always does not have to be your technology group that uses the products. It could even be your business analysts or folks that typically do user testing, as an example, right? So when we built the platforms, we wanted to make sure that they were vast enough to cover all our technologies, that may be used in various Fortune 500 or large enterprises, but also make sure that these products are easy and simple to use so that a whole group of people within the organization, not just limited to technology, can use the platform to expand on that overall coverage and thereby deliver greater enterprise resilience across the entire enterprise.
Fantastic. All right, so it looks like we're pretty much out of time. Unless you guys have anything else to add, I'll go ahead and wrap things up. So like Chris mentioned, AVO is offering a very exciting free 14-day trial. To access that trial, just email them at info@avoautomation.com or request a demo on the website. But once again, on behalf of the Intelligent Automation Network and AVO Automation, thank you so much for coming. We are so excited that you were here. And now let's go liberate human potential.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care now.
Take
Bye
care.
for now. Bye-bye.